All right, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's Friday, April 17th, 2026. Welcome to the Recovery, Relapse, and Psychedelics webinar. I'm Christopher Shaw. So everyone is talking about psychedelics right now, psychedelics and plant and earth medicine, but not a lot of people are talking about relapse. And for people in recovery, that's a very important part. And I'm not speaking about this theoretically. I'm speaking about it from personal experience, from years and years of working with individuals who've tried to get sober and still find themselves back in the same place. But before we go further, I'd like to set the frame. This is not medical advice. I am not encouraging people to use substances that may or may not be legal in your location. And this is not a critique of 12-step programs or recovery. This is a conversation about truth, responsibility, and what actually works, especially for people who are still struggling despite doing the work. So just a little bit about me. I am Christopher Shaw. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, supervisor, a certified sex addiction supervisor, and a registered yoga teacher. And I've been licensed for 18 years, and my private practice and Shaw Center for Healing was in Austin, Texas. Currently, I'm living in Puerto Vallarta with my husband, Aeon, and continuing to do coaching through Zoom. I work with high-functioning individuals that are navigating addiction, recovery, and identity level change. I also work with psychedelics, or what some people call the plant or earth medicines, in a structured, intentional settings. This is not casually and not recreationally, but part as a deeper healing process. I also work with them legally here in Mexico. So I want to be transparent about my position before I share my story. I truly believe in psychedelic assisted work, when done in the right context, can be a powerful tool for healing addiction, especially for those of us who have experienced repeated relapse despite sincere effort. But without structure and without integrity, it can just as easily become part of the same cycle. So this conversation is not necessarily for someone that's in early recovery or someone who is stable and rocking their program. If that's you, that's amazing. Stay with what's working. Today's webinar is really for people who have genuinely tried, who have gone to treatment, sometimes many, many, many times, who have worked the steps again and again, who have shown up, gone to meetings, and still find themselves back in the same cycle of relapse. This is a different reality, and it requires a different level of conversation. So those of us who know about relapse know what relapse is about, right? There's something deeper that's not being addressed, right? And that's what happened with me back in 2019. In 2019, I went through a divorce, which was very difficult. I was 11 years, almost 11 years clean, and I probably wasn't working the best program. I was going to meetings here and there. I had a sponsor, but it was really a sponsor in name. I really wasn't doing the work. I had let work, money, property, and prestige kind of divert me from my primary purpose. And my conscious contact with my higher power wasn't necessarily evolving, right? It was just kind of there. I was going through the motions. And so with everything that happened in my life in 2019, I jumped into some unhealthy behaviors that were not really in line with my recovery. Jumping into relationships quickly after my divorce, relationships that were toxic and that were not good for me. Eventually, right before my 11 years, I relapsed. And that was devastating for me. For 18 years, I've been an addiction recovery professional. I help people recover. And here I was sitting in Mexico, relapsing. And I thought to myself, well, what happens in Mexico stays in Mexico. And so I returned from Mexico and I didn't say anything. Interestingly enough, my sponsor said, did you relapse in Mexico? Like he totally picked up on it, right? And I was like, oh, no, I'm good. Like people were like, something happened in Mexico, but they didn't, they tuned into it, but I wasn't honest about it, right? And we know that's where relapse starts, right? Relapse starts when we're dishonest, when there's a crumbling of step one. And so I tried to hide it for a while. And eventually I got some prescriptions that I probably didn't need, but talked my psychiatrist into giving me. And before you know it, I was off to the races, and it was a very tragic year, 2019. At the end of 2019, I decided that I didn't want to move into the new decade using. I wanted to start the new decade in recovery. And so on December 27th of 2019, I walked myself back in to an NA meeting. That's where my foundation is. And I admitted, came to believe, and surrendered. From that time, I stayed sober for the most part for the next 4 years. I had some slips here and there, little weekend slips here and there, and so forth. But I dived headfirst into program, right? New sponsor, work the steps, continue to go to my therapy every week, continue doing webinars, intensives, anything that I could do to figure out what was really going on. And I told myself, well, this is the grief, right? This is the grief from divorce. This is these toxic relationships that I was in, et cetera, right? But it was really something deeper. It was so deep, I couldn't even really get to it. And I couldn't get to it using the tools that I had. I tried my best. And so in 2024, let's skip to 2024 because 2019 kind of catapulted me into a little midlife crisis, and it was pretty tragic, and there's no need to relive any of that. But it was ups and downs, mostly in recovery until January of 2024. In January of 2024, I called off a wedding. I was engaged to be married to a wonderful man in recovery. We had a good life. I had about 3 years clean. I was rocking my program. Conscious contact with my higher power was kind of there, but nothing was really evolving. It was kind of just lip service. And I knew that this relationship was not meant for me, right? There was no passion, there was no romance, there was no sex, there was none of the things that were really vital to keeping the relationship healthy. We only had a few things in common: recovery and Broadway tunes. And you can't have a lifelong relationship with someone based on those two things. So I had a moment of truth, and I called my sponsor, and my sponsor said, "Are you ready to see what you have been ignoring for the last 3 years?" And I said, "Yes, ma'am." And she said, "You know what you have to do." I hung up with her. I ended the engagement. We called off the wedding. And that kind of sent me into a little bit of a tailspin. And I used it as an excuse to relapse. Once again, relapsing. 48 years old, relapsing. It wasn't pretty. And for 3 months, I hid this from everyone until I couldn't hide it any longer. In May of 2024, I was driving to San Antonio to see a shaman with my best friend, Brian. We were in the car, and the whole car ride down, I was holding back tears. It killed me that I was living this double life with him, who I saw often. And soon as we pulled up to the shaman's office, I broke. I started crying. And he looked at me and he said, "What's the matter?" And I said, "I've been using." And he just hugged me and held me. And I went into that shaman appointment. Thank God I had that shaman appointment with Todd in San Antonio, who's just an amazing shaman healer. And we cleared up a lot of stuff that needed to be cleared that day. But the first step I took was honesty. I got honest about my using. That session allowed me to find some peace and some quiet. And I needed that because it's in the quiet that we hear spirit. My first sponsor told me that the loud voice is ego and the quiet voice is spirit. And if you get quiet enough, you can hear the whisper. And that day I heard the whisper. And the whisper gave me a treatment plan. The whisper said, "You are to get a new sponsor. You are to work steps 1 through 3 in 1 month. You are to go to meetings. You are to tell everyone immediately about the relapse. And you are to call your friend who went down to Mexico and did a plant medicine retreat. And you are to get a referral to the medicine man in Puerto Vallarta. And you are to go to this retreat." Now, for many, many years, I've been fascinated with psychedelics, fascinated with plant medicine. I've always been a huge advocate of the beautiful Mother Earth healing us. I've never been an advocate of, well, okay, I take that back. Western medicine has saved my life in a number of ways, right? But I would much rather Mother Earth save me first and use Western medicine if Mother Earth doesn't come to the rescue, right? And so I was always intrigued by the Mother Earth healing and the beautiful medicines that the Mother Earth provides. But I was kind of scared to enter that world, right? Because one, I didn't know what my peers in my 12-step rooms would think of me. I didn't want to reset my clean date, right? And I didn't want to fall back into using. I thought, well, if I go do psychedelics, even if it's with a guide, like then maybe I'll be back using meth again. And I didn't want that to happen. So I didn't want anything to rock the boat. I didn't want anything to rock the boat. And I had a number of clients over the years who have had embarked upon plant medicine retreats and so forth. And I've always was very supportive, and I did a lot of courses where I learned to help them integrate those experiences, but I never yet had an experience myself. In May of 2024, when Spirit downloaded my treatment plan for me and told me, you are to go do this retreat. And I said, yes. I contacted the medicine man and he accepted me. In 3 months, I was to be in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, but I was on every medication under the sun. They had me on an antidepressant, an antipsychotic, a mood stabilizer. I was on everything, so many pills. And before my relapse in 2019, I wasn't on anything. So I knew I didn't necessarily need all of these things because I had lived 11 years in recovery without any psychiatric medications, right? But that relapse in 2019 was freaking rough. And so I agreed to Western medicine to help me stabilize. And then I got kind of trapped in those medications. So with the help of my beautiful acupuncturist and Chinese herbs, the Mother Earth, I was able to come off all of my psychiatric medications. I stopped vaping. I stopped eating meat, and I prepared myself to go on this retreat. And when August arrived and I arrived in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico for my 10-day retreat, I was ready. Before coming down here, I didn't know whether I wanted to live or die. I didn't think I had a lot of Thanksgivings left, actually, and I really didn't care. I had lost hope. I was lost in my career. I was lost in my life. I thought I would spend the rest of my life alone. And so I really didn't care if I came down to Mexico and I died. Hey, if I died healing myself, fine. And that's exactly what happened that first day. My body didn't die, but my ego died. All the parts of me died that it no longer served my highest good. I entered this retreat with open arms and full surrender. And I did what I was told because I wanted change. I wanted everlasting change. I wanted to be freed from my self-made prison. This happened 2 years ago. 2 years ago is when this happened. And it was a beautiful, 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 beautiful experience. My medicine man used 3 different medicines, 2 psychedelics. One was bufo, or the spirit molecule, 5-MeO-DMT, and psilocybin. He also used combo, which is not a psychedelic and is legal in every country except Australia. Combo is a purgative. It purges. You purge with combo. It's made up of 9 peptides that heal the body, that detox the body, that eliminate trauma from the body through the purge cycle. It was beautiful. It was beautiful. And in those 10 days that I was down here in Puerto Vallarta working with Richie Shivananda, I was set free. I found clarity. All of the answers that I was looking for were crystal clear. I knew exactly what was next in my life, in my career, in my love life, in my recovery life, in every part of my life, I knew. I was also offered an incredible opportunity to train with him, which is very rare because he only takes on about 5 students from all around the world. He's a Mayan medicine man with indigenous training. His whole life has been a medicine man, and I was honored that I was offered to train with him, and I accepted. And I trained with him for over a year. I returned to the USA. I started taking all the courses I could as a therapist to learn more about the medicines, right? So I could help those of my clients that were interested in those experiences. And then I was coming back and forth to work with him, doing retreats, learning about the medicine, learning how to carry the medicine, to hold the medicine with integrity, and follow the indigenous traditions that were passed down to me. In December, we launched my final exam retreat. 4 of my male clients in my practice in Austin agreed to come down and be a part of this retreat that I led with Richie. It was a powerful experience for all of us. They all knew it was my final exam, that I was being supervised the whole time, but Richie and I both led this retreat, and it really was so beautiful for these 4 gentlemen. Many of them I still see in my practice, and many of them have come down here and done retreats and ceremonies with us. I launched Merkaba Retreats because I wanted this form of healing to be available to people all over the world. It was challenging, though, for me in the 12-step rooms. When I came back, I honored the traditions with all of my heart. And, I didn't want to talk about any outside issues in the rooms. So most people knew that I was coming down to Mexico for this retreat. One of my sponsors fired me and said he didn't agree with this type of therapy, so he was letting me go. Friends in the rooms turned their backs on me. Not all of them, but some of them. And many people said, so I hope you're planning on resetting your clean date when you return. I said, no, I'm actually not resetting my clean date. Because I'm not going to Mexico to use drugs. I'm going to Mexico to take sacred medicine that is being administered and prescribed by a medicine man or an indigenous doctor. And as far as I know, in the past, when my psychiatrist had prescribed me Wellbutrin and this, that, and the other, I didn't have to reset my clean date when I took my psychiatric meds, which did change the way that I feel. So I kind of look at it like that, right? This is sacred medicine that was prescribed for healing, was prescribed for trauma, was prescribed to help me move past and go deeper, to set myself free so that I could live a life of recovery. Now, the 12 steps have been vitally important for me, and the 12-step rooms have saved my life again and again and again and again. And so when I came back, I continued to go to meetings. They were hard. It was difficult. It was difficult to sit in the pain. And those of us who have gone to meetings know that some meetings there's lots of solution, and others there's not so much. And so I started going to meetings where I found lots of solution, right? And I learned that there was only certain people that I could talk about my earth medicine experiences to. There was an underground group of us in Austin, in Narcotics Anonymous, who have experienced this type of healing. But no one talked about it. And I was warned, do not talk about this with anyone, only talk about it with us. So it was lonesome because I couldn't talk about it with a lot of people because a lot of people judged me. A lot of people told me that I was a fraud, that I was lying about my clean date. And I didn't let it affect me because I did what I had to do to heal. I did what I had to do to heal. I have never had to go back on any of those psychiatric medications ever again. I have never taken, since May of 2024, a psychiatric medication. Some people, after their earth medicine experiences, do need to go back on psychiatric medications. Others don't. In my experience, many people who have gone through our retreats do not have to return to taking medications because they reset the brain and they clear up things that contributed to them needing the medications to begin with. It's a very simple way to kind of explain it without going into the brain science. I haven't had to go back on those medications. When it comes to relapse, as a person who uses psychedelics for healing, my mentor told me This is the difference. The medicines are to pray, not to play. If you're using the medicine in recovery to play, that is relapse. Many people, we've had many rumors that have been spread about me and Aeon down here in Mexico, that Aeon and I are down here doing mushrooms all the time and doing all kinds of medicine. And that's just not true. That's not true because the medicines are to pray, not to play. The Narcotics Anonymous book says that each of us comes to our own understanding of the program. I have come to my own understanding of the program. The Narcotics Anonymous book also says that medications prescribed by a physician are okay. And my medications, they weren't Western, but they were prescribed by an indigenous physician. And they still are today. My story is not unique. There are many of us out there that are done with relapse, that are looking for other options to heal. And I'm here to tell you that I'm coming up on 2 years in May, 2 years clean, 18 years no alcohol, 2 years clean from everything else, never have had to take another psychiatric medication again. I am happier than I have ever been. I am calm. I am serene. I am at peace. Now, that just doesn't come from one retreat. Just like when we all went to rehab, right? And when you go to rehab, they give you an aftercare plan. If you don't follow it, you're going to relapse. Well, that's the same thing that happens with earth medicine retreats, right? We do extensive aftercare planning with our retreats here at Merkaba Retreats. Aeon, my beautiful husband, who's online, and I'll open the floor up for him in a moment. He's in charge of our integration, and he is incredible. He helps our beautiful brothers and sisters who join us on our retreats come up with an incredible plan. And I have seen this over the last year and a half. I have seen those who go home from Mexico follow their plan and thrive. And I have also seen those who return from their retreats who do not follow their plan, and they end up installing old programs. They're not as happy, joyous, and free as they were when they were here because they don't follow their aftercare plan. So maintenance, we have to maintain what we have gained. And maintenance looks different for everyone. I get up at 3:30 every morning and engage in 2 hours of devotional practices, prayer, meditation, breath work, yoga. That works for me. That doesn't work for a lot of people. Not a lot of people like to get up at 3:30 in the morning, and that's okay. You got to find your way, including my husband. He doesn't like to get up at 3:30 in the morning, but he's found his way. He does his own practice in the morning. And we have our evening practice that we share together before bed to center ourselves before bed. Do we go to meetings still? Yes, on occasion, to celebrate clean dates, to be there for friends, to connect when we need to reconnect to the program. Do we talk about our plant medicine experiences in meetings? No. Do we have friends that we go to in meetings who are also in the plant medicine recovery community? Yes. And with those people, we're able to talk about our lives and be honest about the way that we're living. And we're also able to be accountable with each other. So that's a little bit about my story. Interesting. Things have evolved for me so much over the last 2 years. And many people approach me and they say, you know, I'm in recovery. I really want to come down and do one of your retreats, but I'm in recovery. And I said, well, oh, I'm in recovery too. They said, yeah, but I don't want to reset my clean date. My sponsor said he'd fire me if I did psychedelics. You know, people would, say that I was California sober, not sober at all. And so, he's like, I don't even want to deal with that right now. And I was like, okay, we're here for you whenever you're ready, or we can keep talking about it. There's a beautiful 12-step recovery group called Psychedelics in Recovery, PIR, for those of you who are not aware of PIR. But Psychedelics in Recovery is a 12-step meeting for people that are in recovery who use psychedelics and earth medicine to heal. who use psychedelics and earth medicine to pray, not to play. And it's a beautiful community. They do suggest that you have a base program of recovery and another 12-step fellowship. They do suggest that you do have a sponsor and that you are working that program to the best of your ability. And then you can also get a psychedelics and recovery sponsor as well. Those meetings happen online all over. Aeon, if you could put the link in the chat to psychedelics and recovery, that would be really, really, really great. Because I do think that those of us that are in this space need a place where we can talk about our recovery and talk about the medicine healing that we're doing. All right. So psychedelics, what they are and what they're not. Let's get clear here. Psychedelics are not a solution. They're not a shortcut, and they are not inherently healing. They are an amplifier. And that's why context matters more than the substance itself. What they amplify depends entirely on the structure, your intention, the guidance, the facilitators, and the integrity of the person using them. For some individuals, especially those who are in chronic relapse cycles, psychedelic-assisted work can interrupt the patterns that have not responded to traditional treatment. There is also so much emerging clinical research on this. Many studies on psilocybin-assisted therapy have shown significant reductions in alcohol use disorder, and research with compounds like ibogaine have demonstrated potential in interrupting opioid dependence, sometimes where other treatments have failed. But, and this matters, these outcomes are coming from structured clinical or ceremonial settings, not casual or uncontained use. Because without the structure and without integration and without honesty, they become a very sophisticated way to continue the same relapse pattern. Many people will come to me and say, hey, do you think I should just get some mushrooms and do some healing on my own? No. That's what we do as addicts, right? That's what we do when we're in our active addiction. We call the dealer, we get some drugs, we do things on our own or with some other people that are doing the same stuff, right? And it usually doesn't turn out very well. Well, that's the same way with that happens with earth medicines too. I hear of people that are in their homes thinking they're doing healing work with psilocybin or whatever substance it may be, and they have very dark, scary experiences. That's because there's no container. There's no container. We need a container. You need people that know what they are doing to hold the space for you to do the healing work that you need to heal. That's one of the things that Aeon and I have extensive training in. Aeon has been holding space for over 15 years. I've been holding space in many ways for over 18 years, with the medicine for the last 2 years. You need a protective container, a space that is safe, a program that is safe, a place that has good reviews, a facilitator who is either certified or licensed or knows what they're doing because they have years of experience, right? Do not go out and get plant medicine and do healing ceremonies on your own. If you need to find someone in your area, you can contact me and I will help you. In many places, it's still underground. Some states, they are legalizing psilocybin, ketamine, cannabis, and other earth medicines are being legalized. And that's really, really, really incredible. I'm a huge advocate for that. One of the reasons why we're doing our 2 retreats in Colorado this summer is because psilocybin-assisted therapy is legal now in Colorado. It's beautiful. It's beautiful that these kinds of treatments are being made available. Unfortunately, our veterans in the USA are still having to fly to Mexico to get healed, and the US government is sending them quietly to Mexico to get healed for their PTSD. It will be wonderful when US veterans can heal in their own country. And that's happening. It's just happening slowly. So don't do this on your own. Don't do this on your own. Contact us, go to PIR, get information, do a lot of research, right? Do a lot of research. Go to the right place, to the right people. And oftentimes, when you're researching medicine, something will call to you. A certain medicine might say, I'm the right one for you. Because not all medicine is good for everyone. And there's lots of different earth medicines out there that are very healing, and a lot of medicines that have significant research behind them to heal addiction patterns. So the question isn't, are psychedelics good or bad? The question is, who is this for and under what conditions do they actually work? So it's kind of similar to like psychiatric medication, right? We don't really ask whether it exists. The question with psychiatrics is, who's it for? How's it used? What's the structure? And this is just what I talked about before, is that we really have to have a beautiful, clean structure in order to do these healings. Now, here's a relapse question. Can psychedelics help? If you're someone who's been to treatment more times than you can count, you could probably open up your own treatment center. I would imagine yes, if you've never done that. It did for me. And I'll talk from my experience and those who I know who have a history of chronic relapse. Many people that I know who have a history of chronic relapse are clean and sober today. They have eliminated their pattern of chronic relapse because they have embarked upon some type of psychedelic healing retreat or experience. So it has helped me, and it has helped many, many more. And most of those people are not talking about it because they don't feel safe to talk about it. So why do psychedelics become part of a relapse pattern? Because relapse doesn't always look like collapse. Sometimes it looks like insight without change, experience without integration, and expansion without accountability. And this is where people get lost. If you are embarking upon this kind of journey, integration is key, right? It's key to integrate, to find someone that you can talk to, a therapist, a counselor, someone in the psychedelic space that can help you to integrate your experiences. If not, that could lead to relapse. That could lead to relapse. So before I open up the floor for questions and discussions, if you're considering this path, I'd like you to ask yourself these questions. Is this aligned with my recovery, or am I negotiating with it? Am I seeking truth or relief? Who is holding me accountable in this? What actually changes in my life after this? And can I be fully transparent about this with the people who support my recovery? Yes, I'm going to put this on YouTube. I will. Yes. So if you answer those questions honestly, you'll have more clarity than most people. So let me leave you with this, and then we're going to open up the floor for questions. Most people don't relapse because they're weak, right, people? We don't relapse because we're weak. In fact, many of us are really strong. I mean, we've lived through relapse again and again and again. We relapse because we stopped telling the truth somewhere along the way. So don't let that happen quietly. Psychedelics and recovery is not about replacing recovery. It's about expanding the conversation for people who are still suffering despite doing the work. And if that's you, more effort isn't the answer. A different approach is, because staying in the same pattern has a cost. And if you want a space to actually look at this more closely, feel free to book a call with me, complimentary, and we can talk about it. So now I'd like to open up the floor for discussion. First, I'm going to call upon my beautiful husband, Aeon, to see what he thinks about the webinar so far and what he would like to add, and then we'll open up the floor for questions.
Well, I just want to say thank you, Christopher, for that, and thank you for everybody who made it today and who's here. There were a few things that really stood out to me in your message, and the first was, when you're an individual in recovery, there's this deep sense of apprehension when it comes to the psychedelic experience or to medicine. And I just want to call truth to that and also just recognize it and recognize this understanding of why it exists. Because it's, if you've been in recovery for a while and you're not, and relapse isn't something that you're concerned about, but you're still interested in a psychedelic experience because you're looking for something deeper. The apprehension comes from fear, a fear of how you'll be perceived, a fear of what if this is relapse. There's a lot of fear because we become really comfortable in our recovery But at the same time, that when, thinking about that is like I had become really quite comfortable in my suffering. And so it's like, as we go through the recovery journey and we stay sober for a while, maybe never having experienced the psychedelic experience, but there becomes this moment where you just feel this deeper calling and this inner knowing that there has to be something more. And not in a way that you need to add a substance in order to achieve that moreness. But what it is this yearning to have a deeper relationship with the divine spark that exists inside of you, a spark that over time throughout our lives has been stamped down, denied, judged, like this level of authenticity that we get disconnected from, that the psychedelic experience helps highlight. And helps give us like this direct experience of that deeper relationship with God or the divine or the universe or whatever you call that higher power. And so like when you said about, for a long time when you spoke of having a relationship with your conscious contact and you were really giving it lip service, I know what that feels like. And I think a lot of people in recovery knows what it feels like to give our conscious contact with the higher power lip service. And so what the psychedelic experience has done for me, and what I've seen it do for a lot of people in recovery, is change that lip service to a lived experience. And when you have a lived experience with a conscious contact of something greater than yourself, which only happens through a container, through a sacred space that is carefully curated with intention, with the right people, with the right guides, because otherwise it just becomes chaotic. If you do psychedelics by yourself at home, try to have that same experience, there is no container to help guide the experience to achieve that conscious contact in a really meaningful way. And then once you have that contact, how do you cultivate it in your day-to-day life after the experience? Because when you mention integration, it's like, it's not really the psychedelic experience that is the most transformational part. The most transformational part is what you do afterwards. The psychedelic experience lasts for 4 hours. That's it. And then it's over. Then you're back to normal. But there's so many insights and so many things that happen in those 4 hours that if you don't pull them into your day-to-day life, no transformation happens. And so having, like you also mentioned something about community, and that's another aspect of the apprehension that people in recovery have to exploring psychedelic medicine, because their entire community, their entire network of people has been built on the 12 steps of recovery. And so there's this thought or this fear, if I go have this experience that my soul is asking for, this calling that I'm drawn towards, I will lose all of my community. Because that's what happens when we relapse, right? We relapse, and more times than not, I've had that whole relapse journey for 20 years. Like the community's there, but the moment I relapse, like nobody's there anymore. They're all gone. And I understand they're trying to protect themselves, but like that right there is so painful. And so there's this apprehension and fear of going on the psychedelic journey because there's this fear of losing the community that you've built around your recovery. And so I think one of the most meaningful conversations we can have in the recovery community around psychedelic medication is how do we create a safe space for each other, whether or not that's a part of our journey or not, without giving the person who decides to take that journey the cold shoulder and disconnecting them from the community that has kept them safe. And so I think those are really important conversations for us to have, because, and then the last point I want to draw into, what you talked about, is the Western medical establishment is on the road to making psychedelics a legal form of treatment. So then if that's the case, okay, now that the Western medical establishment says that it's legal, now people in recovery can have this experience without them losing their clean time. That to me doesn't make sense. But I do understand why it was written that way in the recovery programs. Because like the reason why they did that is because in early recovery, we cannot be trusted in those early stages of recovery with ourselves enough to make decisions when substances alter our state of mind. But the Western medical establishment is not the only medical establishment that exists in the world. There's the Eastern medical establishment. There's the indigenous medical establishment. There are other medical establishments that need to be recognized by the program as a whole as legitimate paths to healing in order to open up this door for people to not lose their community if they're taking this path. That was all I got to add.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Aeon. Beautiful. So true. All right, let's open up the floor for questions, for comments. Yes, Natalia.
Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Just such a beautiful presentation. And I wonder if you could speak a little bit more to the subject of your integration plan. Because one of the challenges, I guess, for all of us is when we have a psychedelic experience and finally touch this divine spark, it's just so magical and so beautiful, but it evaporates very quickly. So it's kind of like unbelievable how quickly it disappears. So how do we ground this experience in reality in a kind of like daily routine? Like, what is your advice?
All right, I'm going to turn this one over to Aeon.
Yeah. Okay, so the really interesting thing about psychedelic experiences, when I think of like gurus, like Guru Nityananda, Guru Muktananda, any of the gurus or any of the realized sages, they live in that psychedelic state every moment of every day. And we're just getting a peek into it. But they have spent their entire lives cultivating a relationship with gratitude, cultivating a relationship with themselves, cultivating a relationship with their thoughts, and having ownership and sovereignty over what they think. And so when we have these psychedelic experiences, we get a brief moment and peek into our natural state of being as realized souls. And so one of the things that we do in our aftercare planning, mantra is a huge part of our individual practice. We anchor everything in our lives to that. And during our ceremonies, there will be mantra done in the beginning, mantra done throughout, all of these different mantras. And as sound has a way of wiring itself to an experience, when you are practicing those same mantras that you did during your ceremony every morning and every night, you are revisiting that experience. And the mantra and the prayer and the meditation, they are literally the thread that weaves each moment of your life together. And then also yoga, movement, embodiment, and just a really deep sense of awareness. And the crazy thing is, we talk about these things all the time. You have coaches talking about it, you have all these people always talking about it, but more often than not, they're giving these concepts lip service and not lived experience. And so you have to make these things a part of your daily life in order to carry that experience with you through your daily life. And the more often you practice these things, the less often you need to even revisit psychedelic medication, because it becomes such a lived part of you, moment by moment, drip by drip, where you are in just this state of bliss all day, every day, but you have done the work to cultivate it. So what the psychedelics do, they say, this is what you are capable of. This is the state of mind you are capable of living in. All you have to do is the daily work of creating the foundation in your body and in your mind and in your thoughts to exist there.
Yeah, I have been in Kundalini yoga class, and I was like, I don't remember taking Bufo before this class. I'm seriously in like Bufo land in the middle of Kundalini yoga, right? Because I had activated the Kundalini and was just one with source, right? Like one of the things that I've learned over the years is that we are the medicine, right? We are the medicine, but we need the medicine to remind us, right? To open up those parts of the brain so that we can activate that on the daily, right? And then the daily practices that help me continue to keep that active, the Kundalini yoga, which is so valuable, the pranayama, the breath work, the mantra, right? And then continuing, it's not like a one retreat thing and it's over. For some people, yes. I don't necessarily recommend that. I think that some follow-ups are important, until you can just be the medicine where you absolutely are the medicine all the time. But many of us, that takes a little while to happen. So oftentimes to my, to my guys that have been down here and my beautiful females that have been down here for retreats, I'll say, you might want to consider a retreat, another retreat, like a 5-day retreat or some kind of follow-up within 6 months, another one in a year, or at least once a year or something like that. It's just like in recovery, right? Like continuing to do the work, right? Continuing to do intensives. And sometimes people are called toward different medicines, and so forth. And as long as that's being discussed with your team and your people, that are holding you accountable, and it's medicine to pray, right, and heal and continue to get well. But yeah, all of that just is opening up those parts of our body that just remind us of who we truly are.
I want to. I don't know if Camille is just listening, but I wanted to not to put you on the spot, Camille. But she just left one of our retreats like 3 weeks back, I think. What was the integration and aftercare plan like for you? If you're still here, there she is.
I'm here. There's like music in the background, so I don't want it to be like super, super loud. And I'm like a little bit sweaty. But yeah, I've been doing just like my morning Kundalini every day, which is great. Like I've been waking up a little bit earlier. I've been starting like around 6:30. I actually, Aeon, you'll be proud of me. I've been using my mala beads almost
Whoa,
every
cool.
morning.
Yes.
I think there was only like 2 mornings that I didn't, but I've really stayed with the Kundalini, and then yeah, just like sharing my experience with people. And I actually work in the behavioral health field, so I work with treatment centers. So just people like that were interested, that knew that I was doing this. It was nice for me to be able to share that experience in a way like that could be helpful for them too. And sorry, like y'all can probably hear like the bass
No, we
right
can't
now.
hear it.
Not at all.
Oh, you can't? Okay, cool. Yeah, we have a reggae band practicing like in my house, which is great. But no, just staying with it as much as possible has been super, super helpful for me. And yeah, like planning to do a follow-up eventually. And for me, this was my first experience with this type of retreat. I have done a lot of other deep trauma work, just from being in recovery myself, and holotropic breath work and just a lot of different things. And so this was kind of something else that I wanted to add to that. And for me, it's an evolution of continuing to stay like grounded with myself and continuing to stay with my practice. There was a lot of great things that I got from it that just like realigned me and like recentered me.
Thank you, Camille.
Thank you so much. Wow, what a beautiful, that was such a beautiful week.
I love Camille.
All right, other questions, comments? Anybody else? Anthony, do you want to share a little bit about how it's been like for you?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the webinar so far. It's been great. I know we just connected a few days ago, but just to hear and see. But yeah, for me, I am 3 days away from 19 months of recovery from all substances. And I started working with mushrooms about 18 of those months ago. And then with more plant medicine with ayahuasca specifically has been mostly what I've been working with for the last 7 or 8 months. And everything you said, like I was talking to my life coach, and my life coach, my accountability piece, my life coach is the one where I've done plant medicine with him, and he's the one I integrate with on a weekly basis. So all those key points you talked about, because there's so many things that happen when you're in ceremony and you're not going to remember them all. But it's so funny how like even weeks later something comes up and it's like, oh, I forgot about that. Or it just or life or just your day-to-day life just shows up a little bit different. It's like, oh, I'm noticing a shift. And having that, accountability or having that integration it's just so key to everything. But for me, I've been able to still stay sober. I do have a lot of the back and forth about going into the rooms. A lot of what you said, I don't speak about plant medicine in meetings. I'm very respectful of that. If people come to me to talk to me or ask me about it, I will share. I share very minimally in the sense of I try to just get the most important key points out that I think they can connect with, especially any experiences that I have where I feel of a place of safety, especially for being queer and, not feeling safe during addiction. or when recovery comes up in ceremonies, I do like to share those pieces. But so far, it's been an amazing experience. I'm not perfect. I definitely still have my anxious and moments, but a lot of like what you said, I'm off all prescription medication since last May. I still, do work, mental health work. I still go to meetings. I still work professionally in the healthcare industry. And I'm just, it's manageable and I'm happier and more free. And I'm just continuing to be open, to continuously make choices and be better. Thank you.
I love that. Congratulations on your recovery, on all of this incredible work that you've done, and in being courageous enough to embark upon a journey that is not always accepted or approved of in the 12-step world. It takes a lot of courage to listen to yourself.
I just want to acknowledge Satchel's question real quickly. Satchel, we only have 4 minutes left. I would love to explore that question with you deeper, but I think it requires a little more thought than 4 minutes. So Christopher put in our booking calendar link to a 30-minute call with us. Click that link now and schedule a time so that way we can talk about that in a little more detail.
Yeah, and I'm just going to put that in the chat for everybody. So this one here, let's see, we can do, that one is mine. And then what I'm going to do is put our booking page here. And then here you can book with Aeon, you can book with me, you can book with both of us. That's archershaw.guru/book online. And these calls are complimentary. So we would love to help you on your journey or answer any questions you might have. We do have 2 upcoming group retreats in Colorado this summer, one in June, one in August. I will put the link to that. It's merkabaretreats.com. Retreats.com. Just putting that in the chat. That's our link to our retreats that we do in 2 in Colorado, and then we have a group retreat in October in Puerto Vallarta. We are also available booking now private one-on-one and couples retreats, and some people like to choose their own family and come down here. So we also do chosen families, leadership teams. We've worked with leadership teams who are bringing their teams here to do work with us, and that's really beautiful as well. Talk about going deeper at that level. And so we are booking our private and couples retreats now through the end of the year. So, but it all starts with the call, right? So schedule a complimentary call with me or Aeon or both of us, and let's talk more about your life, more about where you are, answer any questions that you might have, and be on the lookout too. I'm going to continue to do these webinar series on psychedelics with Aeon here as well to answer other questions. And then we'll probably be doing some things together too. So in the coming weeks. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for being here today. I really do appreciate all of you being here today. I appreciate all of those people who were not able to make it, but who are watching this on YouTube. If you need anything, feel free to reach out. We also have published a lot of really good articles on our blog, merkabaretreats.com, archershaw.guru, tons of really interesting articles about the medicines, about the work, about the container, about integration. So much beautiful information is out there. And then, of course, we have our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@ArcherShawTemple is Aeon and I's YouTube channel. And there's tons of fun stuff on there for you to get into. So we hope that you enjoy. So thank you, everybody, for being here. I hope you have a wonderful weekend.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.